Good morning to all. Welcome to another section of this online class. So in the last class we discussed about the chapter final speech in the movie The Great Dictator by Charlie Chaplin. Just an introduction to that chapter. So today we will be dealing with the chapter itself, which is the speech by Charlie Chaplin at the end of this film, which is The Great Dictator. So this is regarding just an introduction to this chapter. So in the last class we discussed about the author's details, then the major details regarding this chapter, and also some details about this film, which is The Great Dictator. So today we will be going with the textbook itself from page number 66 to 68, which is this, contains this chapter in the textbook. So Charlie Chaplin was an English comedian, actor, producer and director of silent films, and his last film was The Great Dictator, and it is the only talking film which he has acted, directed and produced. Most of his films are satires of the socio-political conditions of his times. His characters portrayed the anxieties of a common man in the industrial society with humor and pathos. And his role in the film The Tramp later became the iconic figure in the history of film. And The Gold Rush, Limelight, City Lights, Modern Times and The Great Dictator are some of his famous films by Charlie Chaplin. So this is regarding just an introduction to the author itself. So we discussed a very detailed manner regarding the awards, honors to the Charlie Chaplin in the last class. So today we will be beginning the chapter, the final speech in the movie The Great Dictator. So in the textbook page number 66 we have the text itself, which begins with the introduction to the speech, which is the final speech of by the Charlie Chaplin in this film. And this speech is addressed to the soldiers, especially during the time of World War II. And with this speech, we can consider this speech as a motivational type of speech in order to give some motives and positive feelings to the soldiers who are going to fight against the war during the World War II. So this chapter begins with the sentence, "I am sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business." So this is just a first sentence delivered by Charlie Chaplin in this speech, in which I am sorry, taking an very inconvenience while saying this speech, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. So basically Charlie Chaplin does not like to be an emperor or a dictator, but and he also says that that's not his business, and I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone. So his intention was to help everyone. So this is very important while we discuss this chapter, the introduction to this speech, in which he clears his idea regarding how he negotiates, or how he look these soldiers in a very good manner, in which he should like to help everyone, if possible Jew, Gentile, black man and white. So all categories of people he like to serve all these people, especially to help in this particular incident, which is the World War II. And we all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. So this is another important thing in this speech, in which he clears the idea or the intention of the speech, in which he says that human beings are like that, in which we want to live by each other's happiness. So it is a very important fact regarding the everyone's life, in which we should live by each other's happiness and not by each other's misery. So we do not focus on their miseries, others' misery. We only focus on the happiness. We should provide some necessary guidelines and necessary things to be happy, everyone. So it is very important to make others happy. and we don't want to hate and despise one another. So it is also another important thing. We should not make anyone hate and also despise one another. It means that only thing is between while living in a society is that live in a very unity, harmony, and make everyone happy, and we will not make anything negative or anything despise and hate others, and provide them only the positivity and the important part of the life, which is the happiness. So this is regarding the first part of the speech. In this world there is room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. So in this introduction of this speech, he says that, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. So our earth is very good in nature and its possibilities. So we should provide it for everyone. We should care about everyone, and the way the life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. So this also another important thing in that the way of life, which can be like a free and beautiful, and we should make it possible, and not we have to lost it. And here Chaplin says that, but we have to lose the way. So never lost this way, which means that the life is kind of free and beautiful. So we should follow this life in a very happy manner, in a very easy manner. So this is regarding the first paragraph of this speech. So I think all of you viewed this, watched this speech in the YouTube, which is about 5 minutes, and this chapter is based on that speech, which is the last part from the great movie, The Great Dictator by Charlie Chaplin. So this is the first paragraph, or the first introduction to this speech by Charlie Chaplin. So in the second paragraph of this chapter, which is the speech by Charlie Chaplin, he says that greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into the misery and bloodshed. So this is another reality during that time, especially during the World War II, in which everyone fights with each other, and the countries fights each other. So the result of this war was sometimes they will win and sometimes they will lose. So the loss is regarded as a kind of misery and bloodshed. So this is a very reality during that time, in which the soldiers who are going to fight participate in this war will be maybe they will be killed by others, and they will be lost their war, and maybe they can win also. So this is just a type of probability. So here the reality is that greed, which is the main reason behind all these types of wars and problems, greed has poisoned men's souls, and it has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into the misery and bloodshed. So these terms like greed, hate, and the types of this misery, everything results the kind of this bloodshed and the pathetic way of life, in which the life during that time, especially the life of the soldiers, was very pathetic. So in order to tell the fact or tell the reality to these soldiers, Charlie Chaplin says that the greed, which is the main reason behind all these problems, has poisoned men's soul. So this is very important while focusing on this chapter. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, and our cleverness hard and unkind. So the term cynical means the അപകർഷത ബോധം എന്നാണ് മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയുന്നത്. സോ ഇവിടെ പറയുന്നത് എന്താണെങ്കിൽ നമ്മുടെ പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഈ വേൾഡ് വാറിൻ്റെ സമയത്ത് ഉണ്ടായ പല മാറ്റങ്ങൾ റിയാലിറ്റിയെ കുറിച്ചാണ് ഇവിടെ ചാർലി ചാപ്ലിൻ പറയുന്നത്. ഫസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ഓൾ ദി മെഷീനറി, ദി ഡെവലപ്മെൻറ്റ് ഓഫ് ദി മെഷീനറി, അഡ്വാൻസ്മെൻറ്റ്, ആൻഡ് basically the advancement on the speed, which means that everything was very in a very progressive manner, and but we have shut ourselves in some types of category, which includes the machinery that gives the abundance and has left us in want, and also our knowledge has made us cynical. So our knowledge is regarded as something like the cynical, and our cleverness hard and unkind. So these are the changes that brought back in which during that time, which the changes that made during the World War II time. So this is the major changes, especially for the soldiers, in which our cleverness hard and unkind, we think too much and feel too little. So at that time, everyone, the perspective of the human knowledge was to think, and the feeling was so little. So it is very reality during that time in which we think too much and feel too little, and more than machinery we need humanity. So it is very important fact for everyone's life, in which more than machinery we need humanity. So Charlie Chaplin gives the importance to this typical term humanity, which is indeed a very good thing in everyone's life, basically the life of human beings. And more than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. So this is another reality in which our cleverness and this kind of shortcut ways, everything will give some forms of any shortcuts, any form of some exceptions, but we need only the kindness, not this cleverness. We need the kindness and gentleness. So the kindness and gentleness are the basic qualities for a good person, especially for a good soldier. And he says that without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. So without these qualities, especially these qualities like kindness and this gentleness, the entire life will be like violent and it will be all lost. So this is another important fact regarding life. Especially this is focusing on only on the addressing on the soldiers during that time. But while we watch this movie, it is clear that it is also to all the humanity. The film or especially this speech is addressed to everyone, every human being, in which it is full of sometimes subtypes of facts, realities, and some ideologies. So it is clear that all these facts and realities, it is relevant till today. So this is very important while we study this chapter. So in this paragraph, we discussed some points regarding the life's reality and some facts. Especially first we discussed about the greed, which has poisoned the men's souls, and also then we discussed about the development and the reality. Before that, we discussed about the misery and bloodshed, which is the reality during that time, and we have developed the speed, which is another advancement during that time, and the machinery that gives the abundance has left us in want, and our knowledge has made us cynical. So it is also another important point. And then we discussed about the cleverness and the hard and unkind. So this thing, cleverness, like a very negative manner, it made human mind into a hard and unkind person, and also we think too much and feel too little. So it is very important thing while we discuss this chapter, in which the life during that time and this time also, we think too much, but the feeling or the emotions are little bit slower than the thinking process. And more than machinery, we need the humanity. So this is the most important thing in this paragraph, in which the humanity is the most important thing rather than this kind of machinery. And also more than this cleverness, we need the kindness and also the gentleness. So just avoid this type of cleverness, and we need only the kindness and the gentleness, which is regarded as the most important facts regarding a human's life. And without these qualities, Chaplin says that life will be violent and will be lost. So the life will be meaningless in such a way that if there is no need of this kindness and gentleness, the life will be like lost or meaningless. So this is regarding the second paragraph in this chapter, especially the speech, final speech of this from this movie, The Great Dictator by Chaplin. In the third paragraph of this chapter, the Chaplin says that the aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together, and the very nature of these things, especially these inventions, cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. So this is another important thing. The advancement of this type of inventions like the aeroplanes and the radio have brought us closer together. It is very advantageous of these inventions, and also the very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in man. So it is also good for every human being and cries out for the universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Okay, so it means that the inventions like this invention of this aeroplane and radio brought up the kind of this unity, and it should get this kind of result, especially the unity with these inventions. So at that time the unity was the only thing that lacks especially during the time of this war. So this lack or this problem of lack of this unity was one of the cause for this war, in which the countries fought each other. So it is another important thing regarding this, especially this war. And Chaplin continues that even now my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. So another important thing is that this speech is very relevant during that time too, because it is a very motivational or the inspirational speech for the whole world especially regarding this during the kind of this World War II. And he says that even now my voice, which is the voice of Charlie Chaplin, is reaching millions throughout the world, and also the millions of despairing men. Okay, so the kinds of people which includes the despairing men, women and little children who are the victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. So it was the reality during that time, in which the men who suffered a lot, they were tortured, and also they imprisoned the innocent people. So it is we can say that it is the after effect of this World War II. So this is regarding this small paragraph, and in this paragraph we discussed about the inventions of aeroplane and radio, which resulted the intention of these inventions was to unite the brotherhood, and not at all during that time, the war time, it was not at all successful during that time, and the lack of this kind of unity made this kind of war and problems during that time. And even now the reality is that during that time his voice was reaching millions throughout the world who were suffering, the despairing men, which includes the despairing men, women and little children who are the victims of a system that makes the men torture and imprison the innocent people. So this is regarding the third paragraph of this chapter. And moving to the fourth paragraph, to those who can hear me I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. So this is another important fact in this speech, in which to those who can hear me, which means the speech which is delivered by Chaplin during that time, he says that do not despair. So it is very important. And also he says that the misery that is now upon, during that time the major problem was this World War II itself, and is now upon us is but the passing of the greed. So it is a kind of passing the greed, So greed was one of the another important negative side of this war, in which it resulted this kind of problems during that time. And the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. So it is also the regarding the life, in which the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. And then he says that the hate of men will pass, and the dictators die, and the power then they took from the people will return to the people. So it is another important reality regarding this during that time of World War, in which the dictators who took the power of these all the kinds of people in their society. And he says that this power that they took from these people will return to the people in one day. So it is a piece of hope in which they will get a peaceful atmosphere during especially during this World War II. And he says that and so long as men die, liberty will never perish. So it is also another important thing. Many people were died killed due to this World War II, and they need only the freedom, the liberty. So they are waiting for that during that time. So the soldiers who are the listeners of this speech, Chaplin gives them some instruction regarding their intention or the aim of their process, in which they have to fight back against these kinds of problems and get the successful in the battle. So with that, after this, suppose they are going to win in this war, they will get the peaceful atmosphere during that time. So it is very important to focus on to make the life very smoother during that time too. So they suffered a lot during that time, and he says that one day these dictators or these commanders will die, and the power they took from the people will return to these people also. So long as men die, the liberty will never perish. So it is also another important reality in this speech regarding the World War II. And this speech is exclusively for this kind of soldiers. And with this kind of words, Chaplin gives some instructions to the soldiers who are going to fight in the battle. So this is regarding this paragraph, and next paragraph is regarding a important thing into their events or the life of their experience of their life, in which the soldiers don't give yourself to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. So it is a very pathetic feeling in which the soldiers who are going to fight in this battle in the World War II don't give yourself to the brutes. It is also another important thing in which don't give something or don't give their life to others, especially the other people who are going to battle with them, and also the men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. So all the controls of the human beings or the human life will be controlled by these dictators. And for example, for this dictator is the Brutus. So it is very important is that the life of during that wartime was was a kind of suffering in which they should overcome all these problems, all these tackles, especially the problems like this kind of world war, and they should fight against their enemies in order to get the success in this kind of war. So the reality is that they will enslave you, they should regiment your lives, tell you what to do, and also what to think and what to feel. So it is very important for the soldiers in order to keep their lives safe, and they should keep safe during this kind of world war. Then he continues his speech by saying that who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. So it is very important in which they are like a machines or some devices in order to fulfill the their battle in the exclusively for this war, and they are regarded as the kind of cannon fodder, which means to operate this type of cannons during the World War time, and they will treat you like a cattle. It's a very pathetic situation in which the human beings or all the soldiers, all the people will treat like a cattle and use you as an especially the soldiers, they use as a cannon fodder. It is very important aspect for this war, in which the treatment or the how they make these people, especially these soldiers, in a very trainful manner, very pathetic, skillful manner. So this is also important that while they lost in this war, they will treat them like a slave, like a cattle, and use you as as a like a cannon fodder. So it is a very important thing after the after effects of this war, only when they lost in this war. So this is just like a motivation in which he gives some realities or some real facts regarding their intention, especially the intentions to these soldiers, and it is only to motivate them and to get them confident in while going to this fight in this war. So he continues in his speech that don't give yourself to these unnatural men. So Chaplin calls these people who are the enemies, who are going to fight against these soldiers, as the unnatural men. So they are not a kind of natural men, they are unnatural men and machine men with the machine minds and machine hearts. So it is a very clear definition to this unnatural men. They are the machine men and the machine minds and the machine hearts. It is very clear reality of this kinds of people, in which they do not have the kind of this unnatural men. They do not have the kind of like the machines. They are regarded as the machine men with the machine minds and machine hearts. So they are a kind of unkind person, unreal person, and they do not have the kind of this natural things and human feelings and emotions. So don't give yourselves to these unnatural men who are the machine men with the machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have to love the humanity in your hearts. So it is very important aspect in this speech, in that is that the soldiers who are listening to this speech by Chaplin, Chaplin says that they give some instruction regarding their life, is that you are not like a machine man, in which the machine man means the unnatural men who are who has the kinds of these machine minds and machine hearts. So it is very hard and unkindful persons there, and you should like be like a kindful person, a very gentle person. And also you he also again says that you are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have to love the humanity in your hearts. So it is very important instruction to these soldiers, is that you are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men, and you have to love the humanity, love of humanity in your hearts, and you don't hate. So it is very important to hate anybody and to love everyone, and also to have some kind of humanity in all the minds, especially the minds of these kinds of these soldiers. So it's a very important message given by Chaplin to these soldiers. Only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural soldiers. Don't forget for the slavery, fight for liberty. So this is one of the important thing, is that only the loved hate the unloved and the unnatural. So these things are regarded as the term with un means not. So here the terms like the unsolved hate, unsolved and unnatural, unloved, all these terms gives a clear idea to these soldiers in order to they should love, or they should live in a very gentle way. They should respect others, they should be kindful to others, they should be peaceful. So these messages are conveyed through these kinds of words. So these messages are very powerful, especially this speech itself is a very powerful and very motivational kind of structure. So all the words, all the lines are very important while discussing this chapter, in which each line or each sentence in the speech gives a clear message or instruction to these soldiers. So this is regarding this this paragraph. And at the end, soldiers don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. So it is their aim, in which their intention was to fight for liberty, fight for their freedom, for their nation, and don't fight for the slavery. So they everyone, especially these kinds of soldiers, they don't like to lose in their battle. Instead, they should win the battle, and in order to after they win, they should get the liberty or the freedom, especially the freedom for themselves and also for the nation itself. So it is very powerful message conveyed by Chaplin at the end of this speech. And then at the concluding part of this speech, he says that in the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it is from the Bible, it is written, "The kingdom of God is within man." It is also a very important or meaningful sentence, in which not one man nor a group of men, but in all men. And in you the people have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness, and you the people have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. So these also are some kinds of messages or instructions to these soldiers, in which he says some important aspects based on this Bible quote, which is from the St. Luke 17th chapter. He says the kingdom of God is within man, according to the Bible, and everyone has the capacity to create the happiness and make this life peaceful and beautiful. So it is very important. So he says that, or he gives some kinds of instruction to the soldier, is that you should in you the people have the power to create the machines, and also the power to create happiness. So both the things, mechanical and practical mindset of the human being, is very important in order to create a machine, and also the power to create happiness. So in life, the happiness is very important, and peace and happiness is regarded as a good side of every human life. So they should create the happiness. You the people have the power to make this life free and beautiful. So here the you, which again and again repeats the term you, which means that the soldiers, with the help of this kinds of assertion in these sentences, he gives some kind of power or some kind of confidence to these soldiers in order to fight, or in order to build them as in a very good manner, gentle manner. And the intention of the speech was to motivate these soldiers. And he says that you have the power to create the machine, also the power to create the happiness, and you the people have the power to make this life free and beautiful. So it is very important to create a kind of free and beautiful life, and to make this life a wonderful adventure. Thus the life should be like a wonderful adventure. So these are the other kinds of tips or the messages given to the soldiers by Chaplin. And in the second last paragraph of this chapter, he says that then in the name of democracy, let us use that power, let us all unite. So the unity is the strength. It is the very important thing, unity. So here he says that then in the name of democracy, which is very important in a society, the democracy, let us use that power, let us all unite. So this power, the kind of this power is the unity. So they should unite together, or they should be in touch with another in order to success in their battle, especially this World War II. And also let us fight for a new world, a decent world that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age to security. So it is a dream of Chaplin in order to create a new form of world. And the specialty or the features that he the intention of this his concept of this world is that a decent world that will give men a chance to work, and also that will give the youth a future, and also the old age a security. So these three things are very important in every human's life, especially the the men to chance get a work, to get a job, and the youth to get a wonderful future, and also the old age to get a kind of safety and security. So these are the major guidelines to or the concept based on this his view of a new world. And then he says that by the promise of these things, especially this kind of things, which means the men to chance get a work, and also the youth to get a good future, and also the old age to get the security and safety. With the help of this promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, and also but they lie, they do not fulfill that promise, they never will. So even if these promises are given, or they give these kinds of promises, they should follow these promises, never withdraw these promises. Even when if anybody leaves these promises or just neglect these promises, it will be the decline of them. So here we have an example of Brutus, in which they have to rise to power, and then later but they lie because they do not fulfill that promise. So this promise, which means the kind of the youth, men, and also for the old age, these three promises are very important in every aspect of life, especially during that time, and they do not fulfill that promise, that they never will. So it is a drawback of that kind of Brutus army or Brutus society. So it is just an example to signify the difference between them. So you should follow, the soldiers should follow this kind of promises. It is very necessary. So this is regarding the second last paragraph of this chapter. Moving to the last paragraph of this chapter, which is the concluding part, the conclusion of this speech, which is that the dictators free themselves but they enslave the people. And now let us fight to fulfill that promise. So dictators, it is regarded as a major kind of person who give commands and instruction to the people or the soldiers. They themselves give some freedom or some instructions to these soldiers, but they enslave the people. So the important thing regarding this kind of dictators are they enslave these people. And now let us fight to fulfill that promise. So with the promise is very important is that to get a job or get a work to these kinds of men, and the category of men, and also the future to a youth, and also the security and safety to the old age. So these three kinds of promise, everyone should follow this to follow these kinds of promises. And now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free to the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a word of reason, a word where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite. So this is the last 4 lines of this speech, in which he gives some kind of hope to these soldiers. And at the end he says that let us fight for a world of reason, which means a world of innovations and science and reality and technology, in which all these things were going to develop, and a world where the science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. And also, so the last sentence, which is very important, it is a command to these soldiers. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite. So the unity is the last thing that Chaplin focuses on. So he tells to the soldiers, in order to focus in order to unite each other, in order to fight against these kinds of problems, especially the World War II. So this is regarding the speech. So while you watch this speech, the video of the speech, the real speech, so in that video we can see the emotions or the power of the words that the Chaplin delivers while delivers this kind of speech. And at the end he gives a kind of emotions to the passing a kind of emotion to these soldiers, in order to get a kind of positivity and energy and a kind of very powerful manner, in order to get a confidence in their mindset. So this is regarding this speech. So go through the textbook itself. So the speech is the just a piece of from this chapter. So that speech is very important. The chapter is based on that speech. The lines of the speech are all in this chapter. So you should watch that video, and you should go through the test itself, so you get a clear idea regarding this speech by Charlie Chaplin. You get a visual experience. It is very important to get that experience, and it will be very helpful for you. So that's for today, for this chapter, which is the final speech in the movie The Great Dictator by Chaplin. So that's for today. Thank you. Happy learning.